Welcome back, everybody. So this week we had an amazing incident occur, and so that this period of sort of emotional release slash upheaval was predicted as far back as like 2016 by Cliff High's Alta report, something that I'm sure I was reviewing today, and I'm sure he'll be releasing a video about. It's interesting because he had described this last 7-day period, even, I think about a month ago, he made a video, a month and a half, something like that, as being a very tumultuous period, the period of the 19th through the 27th. We all know what occurred. Yet another, big shooting. And tragic though that is, this viewed from sort of a more macro aspect of global happenings. This was a period of time that the Alta reports, for those of you who have been following the program all this time, and probably Cliff High's work as well, it's out there, basically described, this period as a huge emotional release period. That's in fact what has occurred. In the reports, it was described as 7 days in May. I think that's interesting, and he points out that there is a famous movie called 7 Days in May, and points out that it could even be tied to some of predictive programming, something that I've been discussing as we've been going along here. So the importance of that particular prediction occurring within the stated time period of the 19th through the 27th. And again, the report wasn't sure what the event would be, only that there would be a huge emotional release during this period. Those are called temporal markers. And as far as big events go, it's not necessarily that these smaller temporal markers are tied to the occurrence of larger events that are coming, but they're seen as sort of signposts along the way. And some of you may be familiar with remote viewing. I sure hope so, because it's something that I discuss quite often. And you should familiarize yourself with it, because it's taking on a more and more prominent role, really, in humanity going forward. But you can think of the asymmetric linguistic data trend analysis reports that he does as sort of a linguistic remote viewing. In short, kind of works like this. This is the best sort of way I could put it, I suppose, a very easy to understand sort of way. The human species, on some sort of collective psychic level, is psychic. It not only is it on some level connected like a singular organism, but that singular organism appears to be psychic in that it can somewhat predict events that are about to occur. I liken it to, being in a fight, and right before you get hit, you flinch. That flinch shows up collectively in the global speech patterns around the world. This is something that was figured out and was able to be tapped into by Cliff High, and it's been able to predict some amazing things because of it. Along with his reports, there's been various remote viewing groups who have been really sort of corroborating what those reports have been saying with their own viewing and targeting and etc. Independently. So welcome to the Woo World. I'm Jack Cary, and this is Threshold. interesting times. That's an ancient Chinese curse, and it appears that curse is upon us in spades. And we're living in a period where we're beginning to see the interconnections of all things. We're living in a period that the Alta reports described as being secrets revealed. And all of this is occurring in a period when ancient mystery schools and astrologers predicted there would be a great revealing of the mysteries of all of the secrets that are accumulated in the prior age. And here we are, brand new, really, in the age of Aquarius. And so all of this sort of new secrets revealed information really seems to just be dripping out of everywhere every day. It's almost like leaks in a dam. There's not enough fingers and toes to plug up all the holes, and it just keeps coming out for anybody who's really paying attention. And that's the purpose of Threshold. This week, I was very interested to come across an article where they were talking about how the Reptilian conspiracy has now taken hold of TikTok. This is perfect woo world subject matter. So here's a medium everybody's aware of, that's used everywhere by everyone, it appears, except for me. And and apparently conspiracy theories are big on TikTok, and chief among those now is the reptilian conspiracy theory, something which I have been discussing in the prior episodes, something which goes all the way back to the Anunnaki and their royal bloodlines and the so-called Grail bloodlines into the banking cabals and the current economic implosion, attempts at nuclear war, etc., reducing the population. And here it is, you get to see it in real time. So if you even Google TikTok, reptilian conspiracy, hit news, you'll come up with the article, maybe multiple articles about it, because these types of articles are released in groups by people who are hired to do so, and combat this information from getting out. And all of that sort of reptilian bloodline conspiracy is something that's been talked about by the likes of David Icke, among others. And, people, I talk to other paranormal researchers all the time, and I remind them, people always have this point of credulity where they're willing to go so far and no further. And with the reptilian conspiracy, you're at that, with many people at that point of so far and no further. They're just not willing to take that step into believing that there are, in fact, a group of reptilian-like aliens who have been able to somehow gain control over human society. And that's sort of central to the whole woo world theme that's going on. Now, I find it interesting because I founded the Paranormal Intelligence Agency, and I've got a video on my PIA YouTube channel, which is listed here as one of the sister channels. And it's about the reptilian aliens. And, in my research, I came across a very interesting, very real account from a rock star named Billy Corgan, who everybody will be familiar with as the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins. And he was on an interview with Howard Stern, in which he came clean about being alone with someone. Someone was apparently connected to the music industry. And he clearly described to Howard Stern and the crowd, and it's out there for anybody to see, done, written reports about it, that this person shape-shifted right in front of him. This came from his own mouth on largest radio syndicated show probably of all time. And this is one of those things that people shake their head about, write it off, and move on, right? He wouldn't elaborate. He did say that it shifted into something that was not human. Those were his exact words. Well, what do you have from David Icke? You have him talking about how these creatures control things like the music industry, because if you can control sound, frequency, and vibration, you can control literally almost anything. So I found that to be an extremely interesting piece of real information coming from somebody who was just having a moment of honesty. Now, he also admitted it again in a Rolling Stone interview and also declined to comment any further. Those are the facts of the case, guys. That's just the way it is. And like I say on all of my shows, you can look any of this up. It's out there. I would never tell you something that there is not an absolute source for, because I know that will always come back to haunt me. So this TikTok story really caught my attention because what you're seeing, according to a lot of Woo World researchers, is a complete crumbling of this ancient conspiracy that's been going on for at least 6,000 years. This culminated in sort of a globalist agenda, trying to get, everybody into a one world government, etc. And all of that's just crumbled into pieces. And they're running scared. The globalists who ultimately answer to an alien intelligence know that the odds are not looking good for the outcome of the current battle that they're in. The war that they were attempting to unleash upon the world doesn't seem to have been able to get that off. So the economic implosion, however, is still very much at hand. However, it's sort of, although it's going to be very painful, it will be the end of enslavement under the system that was devised by this entire historical cabal that's been going on all of this time. So, the Alta reports, and this is interesting because it's yet another temporal marker that's still due to take place, is that it's titled Israeli Mistake. It seems to indicate that the Israelis have made a number of mistakes that have sort of piled upon one another to a point where there's going to be some sort of major problem with their society going forward. This will become something that's known and talked about and will appear in newspapers. That's how it ends up in the Alta reports. If it doesn't show up linguistically, it will not actually show up in these reports. So that's something that you'll be looking for. A lot of it seems to have been tied to the overall COVID occurrence. It just somehow caused so many different problems to occur in the line that it seems to be a real problem. Another major temporal marker coming up, and this is something all of us need to keep an eye out for, is that, and keep in mind, guys, that since the temporal marker that occurred this month, May 19th through the 27th, the occurrence, or the likelihood, I should say, of the occurrence of this next temporal marker shoots way, way up in probability. And that probability is that by August, the idea of conversations openly between people, even strangers on a bus, about aliens being here on the earth will no longer be seen as something strange or taboo, but something that everybody will be doing. That seems to insinuate that an event will take place by which that becomes the case. In other words, something will get released, something will be seen in a way that can no longer be denied, etc., that people will begin to openly have the conversation that they are now not having, despite the enormous amount of disclosure information that's going on out there. I will remind everybody that to keep an eye on the show, Skinwalker Ranch. If you want to be on the cutting edge of what disclosure is and what it's about, that show has been chosen as the intelligence agency vehicle, if you will, by which they are going to disseminate information. Just know that that's the case when you're watching it. So what else do I have here for you guys? 7 days in May. Yeah. So also worth noting, because of the recent events and because this seems to occur a lot. Now I'm talking about schoolyard shootings. There was a book written quite a while ago. I'm guessing in the 80s. I didn't read it till the 90s. It's Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. And this was a long time ago, guys. Long time ago. And in that book, he talks about something called Project Orion. Bill Cooper was a naval intelligence officer who had a extremely high security clearance, and at some point was able to access files which seemed to show a accumulation of long-term plans to achieve a singular goal. And that goal is the one you're seeing now trying to be achieved. And in his book, he makes the statement that there was a Project Orion that was started by the CIA, in which they had hoped that they could, in fact, pump so many guns into, sort of the criminal underworld and be able to, sort of fuel loners to act out in schoolyards as a way of achieving gun control. And everybody's going to, has their opinions about that sort of thing. But we have to keep in mind that there are opportunists out there. And there are many people in our society who would like to see gun control. Any sort of fuel they can use to achieve those ends, they do. Not that it's not needed, etc. But you have to keep in mind from a conspiratorial point of view, the idea that a program like that could exist and was written about by somebody a lot of people find highly credible. So I've got a question here. Jack, do you think Bigelow has been aware that Skinwalker Ranch would be disclosure epicenter since the beginning? Does this point to Mormon involvement? No, I don't think it points to Mormon involvement, as if you look at the long-running feud between the Ute and the Navajo that led to that idea being, or that entire area being called the Path of the Skinwalker. That predates any sort of Mormon occupation in Utah by a long shot. And they seem to have detected the same thing that our scientists now, Bigelow scientists, CIA guys, Brandon Fugel's guys now are detecting at Skinwalker Ranch. And it appears to be an alien intelligence. It's a non-human intelligence. Now, whether that non-human intelligence somehow co-evolved on this planet with us or is somehow from somewhere else is something I don't think they know or anybody knows, or how or why the hitchhiker effect seems to work there. Something which I cover extensively on my other channel there. So moving on, there is some deep web discussions that have been picked up, and I'm talking about dark web discussions by very smart people who are able to access such things. stating that the group Antifa is running out of money. Looks like there have been a number of money deliveries that have not shown up. That's interesting. So I'm not sure, because all of that's part of the same struggle that's taking place, and tool that's being used by, other people that are kind of behind the scenes. So there appears to be a money strain going on that would seem to confirm what the whole economic implosion idea is. And this continues to unfold. You're seeing the hyperinflation going up today. Oil actually hit $119 a barrel before it settled unchanged at $115. Silver remains static, sitting at $21, $22 a spot price. That's a coiled spring that, when it goes, is going to take the entire house of cards with it. And they know it. And they're doing anything and everything they can to defend that last line. If that last line goes, it all goes. And you're kind of at that point, that influx point. This is the point that occurs in a new age when you get these kind of influx points. And we're at an influx point where the old way of valuing things is now dead because it was based on a lie. And they continue the money printers as we speak. And every time it prints another sheet, that's another sheet of counterfeit money based on nothing. But they have to, because if those printers stop, so does our society. So, and if society stops, then we become awakened to the problem, and then they've got a problem, and they no longer have power anymore. That's where they're at, and they don't know what to do about it, other than to keep printing. And so you're at a point where you're going to see a reevaluation take place. Nobody knows how fast this reevaluation will take, but the highest likelihood or probability is that it will be a combination of crypto coins and precious metals. In my mind, sort of the ideal currency would be like Bitcoin, the biggest, most autonomous, and has 100 million users, being backed by the precious metal market. So in effect, Bitcoin becomes a way of transferring that wealth back and forth instantaneously in a way that can never be corrupted. And backed by material that is then also used as base components in technology itself. And who knows? It's going to be interesting to see how all of this unfolds. I remind everybody out there, it's the rate of descent that determines damage, be it an airplane or be it a society. And we're on the airplane and it's going down, and we're waiting to see what the rate of descent is and just how deep the damage will be, because if your rate of descent isn't so bad, you can kind of bottom out and come back up. If it's straight down, that's a tough thing to come back from, and it takes a lot longer, and the valley's a lot deeper and a lot nastier, and etc. So I will leave you with this. I found it interesting. I was in the midst of my research this week, and I came across an interview with Dr. Stephen Greer on Third Phase of the Moon, and he was talking about the recent UFO hearings and the obvious obfuscation, as he put it, of the issue to some of the senators, and he's right about that. I disagree with him about everything else, but I agree with him that there is, in fact, still, in the face of all of this information that's being leaked by other sources, there's a group within the Pentagon that still is fighting disclosure. And there's an article out there, and in the article it talks about how some of the people associated with the ATIP program stated that there is a so-called, and these were the words used in the article, secret society at the Pentagon keeping UFO secrets. And that sure reminds me of Majestic 12. I don't know about you guys, but Lou Elizondo, in an interview I've previously pointed out, had confirmed the existence of Majestic 12, in that he was asked if he had ever seen material concerning Majestic 12 while at his role at ATIP, and he stated simply yes. That's all it takes. That means they're real, and he saw material about them. So, and, you know, Elizondo's also made a few statements about the fact that there is still within the Pentagon a core group of highly religious people. And the entire UFO phenomenon flies in the face of most established religious beliefs. And that's a real hard place for these people to be in, because obviously they're supposed to act outside of that belief system, but very few humans can or do. And they're fighting tooth and nail. So when you could have just a gush of stuff that's coming out right now, you're still getting this trickle because there's still this internal fight going on behind the scenes. So join me next week, guys. Same time, same place, and we'll keep on walking down the Woo World Road. I'm Jack, and this is Threshold.
You've been watching Threshold with Jack Cary, a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to CARC Universal today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. CARC. Relentless.